Welcome to Part 6 of Competency 9. In this video, we will answer questions relating to graphic features of trigonometric functions. Number 1. What is the amplitude, period, phase shift, and lowest function value for f of x equals 1 over 3 sine x minus pi over 2 plus 3? Okay, so the first thing we can do is we could look at our function in our graph. However, it really isn't going to do us any good to answer this question. In fact, all of the questions in this video are best just to learn what the features, properties of this function would be, of a sine function with its shifting up and down and left and right and so on. Okay, all those features listed in the question actually. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph that. But before we do that, we need to always make sure that we're in radians, okay, that we're in radians, and function is good for what we're doing. And then just the rest of this is up to you. You can play with it, but being in radians, because I'm looking at our setup, and of course the function itself, we need radians. Okay, so now second mode, let's go to y equals and put that in. Now it doesn't matter if we actually put in the fraction, the fractions as is, or just divide them out, but let's put them in as we see them. Okay, all right, so that's alpha window. Okay, then you will arrow to the left. Number 1 is what we need, so we push enter. Then 1, go down, 3, arrow over, we need sine. And in our parentheses, we have x minus, go back and get yourself another fractional rational setup. Okay, alpha window, arrow to the left again, number 1. And now we need pi. Remember, pi is second, arrow up, arrow down, put in our 2. Now we need to close our parentheses and say plus 3. Okay. All right. Now let's graph this. Oh, and there we go. All right. That looks nice. Okay. And just to make things look a little better, we could, I have that light blue for my axis, my x and y axis. So let me change that. And we do that by going second zoom to go to our format. See where it says light blue? Very obviously. Let's try yellow. See if I can find yellow. I can never remember where it is. I just arrow back and forth till I find it. Okay, push enter. And now let's graph. Okay, that's a little better, but our blue is too dark for our actual graph. So go back to your y equals and let's change that color. All right, let's do something that'll pop. So push enter. And again, I just arrow around till I find something I like. I usually go with the real bright colors because on video, they're easier to see, like the pink, that magenta. Yeah, it's not that I actually favor it exactly, it looks better on the screen. Okay, now let's graph. There we go. See how we can see them. All right, now we can also play with uh, our window. Okay, that looks pretty standard, but I need you to remember that you can go zoom. See that 7 that says Z trig? Let's try 7 and see. See, it isn't exactly like a centered window. But what it does do is it gives us a little bit more central view of our function, which might be helpful to you in future. Okay, now let's do some tracing and see what values we get. Okay, there we are. Oh, look, where it has 0. And now this did help us. See where that 0 is? And it says 8 over 3. Well, wouldn't that be the lowest portion of this function? And yes, it is. And I see that value. See, now I kind of told you the truth by saying it's going to be up to us to calculate. But in all honesty, half of it is us calculating, and the other half is the calculator would give it to us. So that's very convenient. So we already know because it asks for this low function value, we know that this 3 here, that 3 and this 3 do not satisfy. So now that gives us two options, A and D. So that eliminated that. Okay, now let's see what else we got going on here. The amplitude. Well, no, that's not in our calculator. But we know that amplitude is the A, okay? And I have that little a little clip of what we had prior in our video. Remember I said take a screenshot. I have it right here. Okay? So amplitude is the A in front of the sign. So that tells us that this option is not valid. So we have a check mark on the 1/3 and a check mark on the 8/3. Now we need to deal with what is our period and what is our phase shift. Okay, let's look at our image. Well, period is 2 pi divided by b, and b is in front of the x. Okay, so 2 pi would be divided by this, oops, by this 1 right here. Oh, I keep messing that up. There would be a 1 in front of the x, understood 1 right here. So 2 pi divided by 1 is simply 2 pi. So that checks out. Okay, now a phase shift. Well, let's go over here to what it says. Well, that is saying that it is C divided by B. Well, C is our pi over 2. And again, B's just 1. So pi over 2 divided by 1 is just pi over 2. Okay, so because there's a 1 in front of the x, an understood 1, we can just take our values of our phase shift, our 2 pi as face value and pi over 2 as value. Okay, all right, it's just the given is our option. Okay, all right, so that means A is definitely it. So our calculator can help us somewhat, okay, but not on everything. We just need to know our image here. Make sure you're familiar with all these things, okay? All right, so let's go back to our question number 2. Okay, if I can move everything over where it really goes. Okay, all right, now what is the amplitude, period, phase shift, and highest function value for our function here? Well, let's go put that in. Okay, and we can just type over what we have. Okay, so we have, go here. All right, and you know what? I'm going to delete it out because it is a fraction, and I don't want a fraction. Okay, but now I have it to the 3, and I can say -5 and type over it. Okay. Oh, looks like it's not going to work. Okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, lesson learned, okay? -5 sign. In parentheses, we have 3x and plus pi. Remember pi, second caret up. And then close our parentheses and say +2. Okay, we're still with the bright pink. We should have a good window, so let's graph. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's do the Zoom 7 and maybe it'll give it a little more like what we're used to seeing. Zoom 7. It's still pretty close. It was still good. Actually, I'm thinking the other one was a little better. You know why? Oh, it's still not getting. Let's go to Zoom. Let's try 6 standard. Oh, yeah, 6 standard was a lot better. And you know why? Because we just quickly want to get our high. Okay, so let's do a trace and arrow. Notice I'm taking, or rather using the arrow to the right to go up. You would think up would be what you want. It actually isn't. Okay, and looks like our high. Oh, it's having trouble getting us a high. but we can see that that y value is close to 7. Okay, so how do you really do this? Let's go back to our picture, pop that up. It is, they don't show it here at all. Okay, I'll just give it to you. My mistake. What do? We take our D. Oh, I do need the picture for that part. It is necessary. What we need is D here. D minus whatever the A value is. And in this case, that is 2 minus the A as is. Now notice for amplitude, we always use the absolute value, okay? Now that I say that, okay, we know that 2, I'm doing 2 things at once here. Let's just go ahead and get our highest value, 2 minus minus 5. Well, a minus and a minus is plus, so that means we need 7, okay? Well, that gets rid of that. And another thing going on, we need the absolute value of minus 5, which gives us 5. So now I know that B doesn't work for 2 reasons. Okay. And I know A, although this is correct, it doesn't work with 2. So that is incorrect. Okay. So now that leaves me with C and D. Okay. And I can already see this -5 is incorrect. Okay, so I have a check mark here. So that leaves me with option D. However, I still need to check these. Okay, now let's look at our image. And if we want the phase shift is C over B. Okay, so that would be pi divided by the 3. Okay, so that is a check mark there. That works. Now the period, how do we get our period? That would be 2 pi divided by b. Well, yes, that's 2 pi divided by the 3. Okay, so D is the option that works. And I verify everything. And the reason I do that is, let's say you're getting tired or you just kind of looked at something wrong. Check all of the items in any answer, just in case one thing doesn't make sense. And if one thing doesn't make sense, then you go back and you double check. If you understand what I'm saying, if that's ever happened to you, I'm not a perfect tester. It happens to me all the time. You get distracted for a second, especially when you're teaching. Oh my gosh, there are so many distractions. So, and students need to see every single portion anyway. So when you're testing, look at everything, okay? Save yourself some grief later down the line. All right, so let's look at the next one. The lowest function value of, so we know that we need to go back to our calculator, okay? And I'm going to clear out, we have here, okay, I'm going to go to my y equals, and I'm going to clear all of our buttons we pushed, because you could rerun the video to see the buttons. And yes, in some videos I clip them out for you, but in this one I'm not. So you will need to, if you forget something, you can go back and see what I did. All right, so let's clear it out. And as we learned the hard way, we can't clear everything out, but we can, or like if we want to type over this. So I know I can delete this out, and I have my sign because it's a 1 in front of it. Oh, well, doesn't that tell me that the amplitude is 1? But let's read this. The lowest function value of f of x sine 1 half x plus pi over 4 equals plus q is 6. Okay. What are the values of Q, phase shift, and period? Okay. And they're saying the lowest function value. Oh, I could do better with that. Oh my. Let's do better. Okay. Oh yeah, delayed reaction again. Okay. They're saying that that equals 6. They split it up. It's worded strangely. Okay, not what I would do, but that's what they've done. Okay, that being said, and I kind of got ahead of myself with the calculator, but that's okay. We'll fix that. All right. So because I automatically saw the fact that this is a 1 here, an understood 1 in front of the sign. So that means our amplitude equals 1. So, okay, what do they want though? They're not asking for amplitude, but we need to know, need to see that, right? It's not part of an answer, okay? All right. So they're asking for Q, phase shift, and period. All right. So let's put this in our calculator. All right, where our 3 is, what do we need where the 3 is? We need 1/2. Okay. So what do I do? Well, I don't want to use clear, but I'll delete it. Oh, I shouldn't have done that, but that's okay. All right, so go over graph, window. Yeah, probably should have typed right over that. But maybe that's not the. Oh, it did work. Look at how it popped in. Ooh, that was nice. Sometimes it works for us, sometimes it doesn't. And that's 1 over 2. 1 divided by 2. Okay, now we need pi over 4 over here for our C value, okay? So let's do alpha window, go over, push that, okay? And we will need to delete out this pi. I'm going to delete it. Okay, now I need pi over 4. Second, caret up, put in a 4, and the D value we don't know what the D value is. We can find it real quick if we wanted. Sure, we can. Remember this? They said that the lowest function is 6. Well, how do you get the lowest function? The lowest function is actually D minus whatever the A is. And for us, that's going to equal 6. But what is our A? Our A is 1. So we can go and put 1 in there. Okay, and this will imply that D equals 6 plus 1, which equals 7. We've done two things. First, type 7 over your 2 so you can graph, push graph. Okay. Now you've done something else. You have gotten the value of Q. Okay. That is the value of Q. So, which is actually D. Okay. They tried to throw you by putting Q in there. It's actually D. D equals 6 plus 1. So that gets rid of A and B. Those options no longer work. So now we need to decide what is our phase shift. And before we look at our little image again, let's zoom and use our 6 or our 7. Let's try 6. That's where we were. It's an okay picture. We can at least get our low to verify that our low, because our low is supposed to be 6. So let's trace this and arrow to the right to go to the nearest top. Okay, actually, that's going to be our low, not, I was doing high. Oh, goodness, going the wrong direction. I guess I could have kept going. Our low, yes, obviously, if we get as close as we can, sure, we see that it's 6. Okay, so that at least verifies that our image is okay. Now, I wanted to try zoom 7 and see what that did. Oh, wow. That it didn't even catch it at all. We would have to totally change our window. And it's not necessary. So let's go back to our 6. There we go. See the difference? Okay. It's always good to play with it and take a look. Well, it's good to play with it now before you're in the middle of a test. In the middle of a test is not the time to learn these things. Now is the time. Okay. All right. So what do we need? We need to bring our little image up. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Here, let's bring this back and this back. And now our image. There it is. Okay. All right, so there's our little image, and it says, okay, what do we need? We want the period, and the period is 2 pi over b, and b is 1/2. So we need 2 pi over 1 over 2, which equals 2 pi over 1 times 2 over 1. Well, that equals 4 pi. And that tells me that this is not correct. Probably our best bet is C. Okay, well, let's go back here. And we need to get our phase shift. What is phase shift? Well, phase shift is C over B. Well, C is pi over 4, and then over B is 1/2. Okay, well, what does that really equal? Pi over 4 times 2 over 1, and that reduces to pi over the 2, which verifies that C is the correct option. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Okay, number 4. What is the amplitude, period, phase shift, and lowest function value for f of x equals 3/4 cosine 2x minus 1? Okay, well, there are some things that we need to know really quick before we put this in our calculator and take a look at all of our values here. First off, we know what the amplitude is. That's 3/4. So obviously we can get rid of A and D. Okay, remember from our little picture here, okay, tells us that A is our amplitude, and that is before our sine or cosine. It doesn't matter that we're working with cosine. If you've worked with sine and cosine before, they can almost be, or they can be, the same curve if one or the other is shifted correctly. Okay, now the next thing that we notice is that here we have a B, we do not have a C value. And the 1, that -1, that's actually our D value. Okay? So this means that C is 0. And that makes our phase shift 0. Look at phase shift. That would actually be 0 over 2. Okay? And both of those are correct. So those check out. Both of our phase shifts are 0. So I agree with that. Now, what is the period? Well, period is 2 pi over b. So 2 pi over 2, the 2's cancel. And that's just going to give you pi. Well, this tells me C isn't going to work. So we need here, let me erase that. Okay, what we need to do, well, it's not letting me do that. Huh. Oh, there it goes. Delayed reaction again, every time. Okay, so the only thing I want to check here is this -7 over 4. Well, let's do that by putting it in the calculator. I mean, I could see how to do it. We really need, remember, we're going to have D minus A, whatever A is, okay? Let's see here. So I'll use a different color for this. So I'm seeing that A is a fraction and the denominator is 4. So I'm going to turn my D into 4 over 4. And then I'm subtracting whatever A is, and A is 3 over 4. And a negative plus a negative is a negative, and I see 7 over 4. Okay, so I verified numerically by hand that yes, I believe option B is what we need. But you could uh, put that in the calculator, double check it. Okay, you could just take 7 over 4, right? And say it's negative. But let's look at the whole situation in y equals and deal with it. Okay, we need to clear this out. And I'm going to put in a fractional setup again. The rational, so 3, arrow down 4. Go over, and we need cosine this time. And that's just 2x, okay? All right, then I'm closing my parentheses and doing -1. Note what I had to do to put in the 2x, okay? -1 was actually not part of our cosine values. It wasn't part of our angle, which I find annoying that's the fact, but you just have to learn how to do these. And honestly, I think that they would put parentheses correctly on a test question. I know in textbooks I've seen this not done quite right, but really all textbooks should have a parentheses there. You just have to learn how to deal with it. You never know. Okay. All right. So let's graph this. Okay. And notice that everything's negative. Yeah. It's been shifted downward. So that tells me that any low value or even high value, if it was positive, it would be incorrect for my options. But we see here they're all negative. So, we still would have to look. But we could trace and do a little double check in. Let's see here. At 0, it's -1/4. Well, that kind of tells me the 7/4 makes sense. Okay, so let's arrow to the right to go to our low. Let's see. It's not going to give us a clean value. However, when x is 1 2/3, so we would actually have to take and turn that into a decimal to judge it. We can do that real quick. Okay, so second mode to get out of that, we can always go back, not a big deal. So I'm going to say -7 divided by 4. Okay. So that is going to be -1.75. Okay. So I see that we need to look at our graph and trace. And yes, if we go back to the very low part, it is getting close to that. So, but see how it's an estimate? That's not exactly the best way to do it. Actually knowing how to deal with that value and get that by hand is probably quicker and more accurate. Okay, so number 5. All right, let's see what we got here. We'll just go all up to 5 and 6. Okay. What is the phase shift and lowest function value for -2 cosine x plus pi over 6 -4? Okay. So we can already see what our low is. That is -4 minus -2. Well, this is a plus. So -4 plus 2 equals -2. So I'm going to say this and this are incorrect. Okay. I don't believe in either of those. And let's see, what about our phase shift? Well, can you remember what the phase shift is? Okay, that all depends. Let's look back at our image. Well, the phase shift is C over B. And B happens to be 1. So that just gives us the value of C. C over 1 is just C, so that is, as we see it, pi over 6. Well, that means these out, and these others are already out. So that tells us option A would be the best option. Now, remember, during a test, you will not have your notes. You won't have this great image. So you really need to practice and make sure you remember this. Because, in all honesty, on a university test, you're going to see at least 1 or 2 questions with some of these basic ideas. They're going to go a little bit further with it, asking you something particular, but still it's going to be this. Do you know the basic properties, basic features of the graph in order to answer this, a little more rigorous question? So you can't answer a rigorous question without knowing the low level items. I mean, it is what it is. Okay. All right. So let's look at number 6. And this says if the period of this function where it's 1 over 5 cosine cx minus pi plus the d. They took it out, but they're saying the period here equals 3 pi. All right, so I want to put all that together, okay? And the highest function value is 2. All right, so we can use that right now to help us out. Okay, and then we're going to put it in the calculator, okay? So we know that D minus A A minus that A, and we know that A is 1 over 5, and that should equal 2, okay? Because if it's the lowest, we subtract. If it's the highest, we have to add, okay? All right, so what is this going to give us? This implies that D equals 2 plus 1 over 5, 2 plus 1/5, which gives us, well, oh no, we're adding. I'm sorry. It's saying, what is the highest? Ooh, I said it and did it backwards. Oh my goodness. If it's the high, you add, and it's asking for the high, not the low. Oh my gosh, my gosh, my gosh. Okay, so that means, okay, it is the high. When it's the high, you take your D. From where D is, you're going to go up. See where your D shift is? And you have to take the value of D and go up to the high. So we're adding, okay? All right, so let me get rid of this. Okay, now that we do that, when we look at D, that means we are subtracting, okay? You know what? Let's just pop that in the calculator. I could do it by hand. Again, when you're testing, how much should you do by hand? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it isn't. Let's not do it here. Okay, so we go back to this second mode, and I say 2 minus 1 divided by 5. Notice how I put the fraction in parentheses real quick to deal with my order of operations. Push enter, math, enter, and there's my fraction, 9 over 5. And yes, we only have one option that fits it right here. So that would mean I have found what we need. But let's not trust it just in case I've made a mistake. Let's go ahead and see what the value of C should be. Well, how do we calculate C? Well, let's go backwards, okay? All right, we know that, okay, let's go back to my image. Okay, we know that the period equals, okay, 2 pi over B. But they're calling B C. They're making it confusing. Okay, they did it deliberately. Okay, so in this situation, I have 2 pi over the C. And C is B in our picture. Yeah, not very nice of them. Okay, and they're saying that the period, which is we go to the period, equals 3 over pi. So what do we need to do? We need to multiply both sides by C, and that means that we can eliminate C over here, and then we can actually rewrite 2 pi over here, okay? right? And then divide both sides by 3 pi. Okay, this goes away, cancels out. And please notice that also pi cancels out. And that gives us C equals 2/3, which verifies our option C as being correct. Okay. Notice I didn't, like I said before, check all the parts before you move on. You know, uh, I know that it seems like you're in a hurry to test, and yes, you are. But you need to think to yourself, my calculator is buying me time. Okay. Just be quick but thorough. That's the key. Took me a while to learn that when taking some pretty important tests. Okay. And I've taken a few. All right, guys. This is the last item in our, I'll go back to the calculator. You know what? It is our last item, but before we stop the video, I want to put that in the calculator just to take a look. Then no harm in that, right? Okay, so we have it set up for cosine, and it's, to put our C and our D in to see if it actually jives with the answers we got. Okay, so let's see here. I could go ahead and arrow over, and I need 1. I'm going to type on top of it to the most of it, for most of it that I can. Okay, here's my cosine. Let's see, what do I need here? What is C? C, all right, uh let's put in a rational, a fraction. So 1 over, okay, so what do we need? 2 over 3. I'm sorry. 2, arrow down, put in a 3. Now I can get rid of that 2. Let's delete it. We have our x. Now what do we put in? And we need minus pi. Minus, second, carried up, parentheses. Now we type in our D, and we're saying that our D is 9 over 5. But it's a positive. Yes, a plus 9 over 5. Okay, so plus, I'll put in the rational again. So let's arrow over in our 1 and 9, arrow down, put in your 5, graph. Ooh, that's kind of flat looking. Let's try a different zoom, a different window. Zoom 7, a little better. Zoom 6, Zoom 6. Yeah, Zoom 6, I'm not like, yeah, not good. Okay, so Zoom 7 is, that's decent. It at least gives us something where we can trace and look at some values. Okay. Uh, well, it says when we're at 0 that that's 8 over 5. The problem is that really isn't the lowest portion. So if we arrow to the right, we see that it's actually going lower. You know what? Let's look at our table. Second graph. Okay. So we are saying that D is 9 over 5. Let's look at where that would be. Yeah, see, that's even lower. And yeah, see where the 0 is? And we went to the right, the positive side. Yeah, so 8 over 5, that would not be the lowest. Let's put 9 over 5 in the calculator again. Let's do it real quick. Get our decimal. 9 divided by 5. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, 1.8. Okay. So let's do this. Let's go to our setup, okay? And it's not that I mind beginning at 0. That's good. What I want to do is we had a 0.8, so I'm going to say 0.1, okay? And now I'm going to go second graph to go back to the table, okay? And let's see what our lowest really is. We need 1.8, so let's keep going and see. Okay, All right, we're looking at our y value, remember? Okay, that's going past 3. Yeah, okay. All right, it's somewhere in here at 2 and 2/3. Let's go back to our graph. Is that really where we were? 1, 2, 3. Depends on how everything's set up. So let's go second trace. Oops. No, it's just trace. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's see, we're going for our lowest. Oh, oh yeah, we were not the right place. We need to go more this way. Oh, that's hard to get. Okay. Oh, well, look at what I was doing. I was doing the lowest and it says highest value. No wonder. So if you go to the highest value, it is past 2, and it was right where they said. Again, look at your question. Okay, that's almost 2, but it should have been over here. Y value. Yeah, that's really hard to get. Yeah, in this case, our graph just doesn't help. And I mean, it's interesting to see it and try to compare, but it's not super helpful. And the fact is that it says 3 pi. Well, what is 3 pi? It's not really too helpful for us. Okay, we tried. We had what we needed, okay? Anyway, this is the end of our video. I thought I'd play around and let you see what we could do. I mean, you can play around more and see what you can get your calculator to do for you. The honest truth is, we were done relatively quickly. So there's only so much that we need from our calculator on these particular types of questions, okay? All right, and once again, thank you for watching and listening to my rambling, I suppose. And thanks again for all the likes and the shares and the subscriptions. Happy testing!